Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is June 23rd, 2025. And ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona are looking to finalize the contract renewal of Frenkie de Jong during this week. Yes, you heard that correctly. This week. Also, Nico Williams has officially packed his bag and emptied his locker room at Athletic Club de Bilbao. And finally, Barcelona are closing in on a signing of Roony Bardghji. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo. This is the Barca News live podcast, which is on every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where not only we discuss Barcelona news, but where I also get to interact with you lovely people in the chat section by reading your comments, answering your questions, and getting the discussion going. For those of you who will be watching when the podcast ends, I will be putting timestamps in the description, chapters in the timeline, in case you do want to skip through the discussion and get straight into the news. Having said all that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. All this helps the channel continue to grow. If you're looking for any Barcelona jerseys or merchandise, make sure to Goal Kids, Kickback, or Fanatics, where, by the way, not only can you buy Barca stuff, but any team, football team, any sport, whatever you want, you can go to those sites and get your gear. And finally, if you want to play sports bet, again, not just on Barca matches, but on any sporting event around the world, UFC, boxing, hockey, basketball, you name it, you can head to Bet Us. All links are in the description. You click on them, you get access to some pretty cool deals, offers, discounts, all courtesy of Barca News. All right, having said all that, let's begin with the news. And as always, the first segment of this podcast is comprised of multiple segments of news combined together, starting with that, ladies and gentlemen, Hansi Flick has scheduled a meeting with Ter Stegen, Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, and this meeting is scheduled for the second week of July. As you know, Barcelona have signed Joan Garcia, and the club have decided that Joan Garcia will be the number one goalkeeper. Wojciech Szczesny, who's very close to finalizing his contract renewal, will be the second goalkeeper, with Kochen or Jakubishvili being the third goalkeeper, which means that Marc Ter Stegen has no space left on the Barcelona squad. And as such, Hansi Flick is set to meet with the German goalkeeper during the second week of July, before July 13th, which is when the preseason is set to begin, in order to let Ter Stegen know, hey, we've signed Joan Garcia. He's going to be number one. Tech is going to be number two. There's not going to be any minutes for you. If you want to stay, cool. Just know you're not going to be playing. So if you want more minutes, if you want to play the World Cup with Germany in 2026, it's best that you go somewhere else, because here you're not going to be getting any minutes. Now, so far, Marc Ter Stegen has said, no one has told me anything. I have a contract until 2028. I'm staying at Barcelona. But of course, this meeting could change things, because, again, no one until this point has told Ter Stegen anything. So come this meeting, maybe he does change his mind and figures, hey, I want to start for Germany in 2026 for the World Cup. So maybe it is better to leave. We'll see. And of course, I will be here to update you once that meeting happens. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. If you haven't hit that bell button, make sure you do. You don't want to miss anything. So Flick set to tell Ter Stegen, sorry, but you are no longer needed, which is what you do, which is what every club on earth does when they want to push a player out. Yesterday, I made a video that said, hey, about Deco, when he said, I'm not going to talk to him. People were defending that. Like, oh, they shouldn't talk to Ter Stegen. He's a grown man. He's going to figure it out. What? So you telling me at your job, when they're going to fire somebody, they just decide to fire that somebody and then they just don't tell him? They're like, he's going to figure it out? Because shit, if that's the case, man, sign me up. Because I would love to have that kind of job where they don't tell people they're fired. Because I would never show up to work. I wouldn't work, and then they would decide to fire me. But since they don't tell me, because I'm a grown man, so I would just pretend I'm not fired, right? And just keep showing up, keep going on vacations, keep doing whatever I want. And I would keep getting paid. Because apparently, according to people on my comment section, you don't have to tell someone when they're fired. They have to figure it out on their own. Sign me up, people. I want that kind of job where you don't get told you're fired and you just have to figure it out on your own. I'm down. I'm down for that job. Anyways, on to the next bit of news, because, ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona are gearing up for a crucial week because it is the end of June and July 1st is right around the corner. Now, what's July 1st, you say? Well, July 1st is the beginning of the new fiscal year, as I've explained multiple times on this channel. On June 30th, that's the last day of the fiscal year. All clubs turn over their paperwork, their financial paperwork to La Liga, showing how much money they made, how much money they spent, the players they signed, the players they offloaded, blah, blah, blah. La Liga looks at that paperwork, and then they issue new salary caps to every club. And that's when every club finds out, am I under the 1-1? Am I under the 1-2? 1 to a million? Whatever. So July 1st is the new fiscal year. And Barcelona are hoping that by July 1st, the beginning of the new fiscal year, they will be officially under the 1-1 rule. Now, what does Barcelona need to achieve the 1-1 rule? Well, first of all, they need to validate the VIP seat deal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Barcelona sold rights to some VIP seats at the new Spotify Camp Nou at the end of December of last year. They submitted that paperwork to La Liga. La Liga initially accepted the paperwork and said, Barcelona, you're under the 1-1 rule thanks to these 100 million euros that you just made off these seats. But then an independent auditor that Barcelona hired to audit this deal said, no, you can't count that 100 million as income because the seats are not built yet. So this auditor named Crow, they issued that report. So when La Liga saw the report, said, sorry, Barca, but your own auditor is saying you can't count those 100 million euros because the seats are not built. Well, now the seats are built, and Barcelona want to go back to this auditor, to Crow, and say, hey, Crow, you said we couldn't count the 100 million euros because the seats are not built. Well, now they're built. So issue a new report saying that we can count them. And if Crow does issue that report, Barcelona will go to La Liga and say, look, seats are built, 100 million is received. Crow says it's okay. You need to say it's okay too. The next thing is Barca Vision. As you know, Barcelona sold 10% of Barca Vision to the German investment fund Libero for 60 million euros. Libero only paid 20. Then they defaulted on the other 40. Barcelona found a new European investor to sell those shares worth 40 million euros to this new investor so they can get the money that they didn't get from Libero. And then Libero said, hold on a minute. Barcelona found someone else. Maybe we should pay those 40 mil. So right now, Barcelona are waiting. Is Libero going to pay the 40 million euros that they were supposed to pay last year and now they decided to pay it? Or is it going to be the new investor? Either way, it doesn't matter. Barcelona will end up selling those shares either back to Libero for the 40 mil or to the new investor. And Barcelona are looking to finalize both these things, the seats and Barca Vision, by the end of June. That way they can count in Barcelona's budget or fiscal year. And starting July 1st, they can be under the 1-1 rule. Why? Because they need to be under the 1-1 rule so they can register players like Joan Garcia, who's officially a Barcelona player, and of course, Nico Williams, who Barcelona are, expected to finalize his signing in the next few weeks. Now, it's reported that Barcelona want to also ask Ter Stegen to forgive the salary that they owe him because Ter Stegen did agree to lower his salary in his last contract renewal to help the club out. But Barcelona still owe him money from when they rescinded his contract. Sorry, not rescinded his contract. When they negotiated that deferment during COVID. As you might remember, when COVID happened, some players agreed to, defer their salary, meaning, hey, you pay me later when the club is doing better. So even though Ter Stegen agreed to lower his salary to help the club, Barcelona still owe him money from his salary deferral. So Barcelona are hoping he forgives that so they can achieve the 1-1. That's a tall order. And this is what I mean. For all of you Ter Stegen haters who are like, fuck Ter Stegen, blah, 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 blah. The club doesn't need to tell him anything. And this is the thing. This is why it's important to respect your players, because respect pays off. Yes, you're not required to do it. Having good manners is not legally required. Being respectful is not legally required. You're right. But had Barcelona approached this in a better fashion with respect to the player, it'd be much easier to say, A, I need you to leave, and B, do you want to forgive some part of your salary that we owe you? Don't you think that's the smart way to go about it? Just think about this. And again, it's not about Ter Stegen. It's about any player. If you're planning to push a player out and you're hoping he forgives the money that you owe him, don't you think it's a better idea to approach him nicely than to just stick a big finger and say, fuck you, you're out? Just think about this. People say, oh, no, Mo is just in love with Ter Stegen. Look, I don't care for Ter Stegen. I don't know the guy. I'm not in love with any of Barcelona players because I don't know them. I'm just there to watch their football. And if they have great football, great. Awesome. They're contributing to the team. And if not, they need to leave. It's easy as that. So it's not that I'm blinded by my love for Ter Stegen. You're blinded by your hate for Ter Stegen. Because think about this logically. If you want a player out who has a contract, because remember, Ter Stegen has a contract until 2028. He could say, fuck you, I'll sit on the bench for the next 3 years. And Barcelona are screwed because his salary is big. Okay. But if you want to push a player out who has a contract, who has a legal right to stay, and you want him to forgive money, don't you think the smart thing to do is to treat him with respect? Think, people. But anyways, let's do the comment section, and then we are going to talk about Frenkie de Jong's contract renewal. All right, let's see what everyone's saying. Not a funny guy says, Mo, have you seen the lineup Hansi Flick wants to go with next season, and what's your thoughts on it? All right, here are my thoughts. There is no such thing as Hansi Flick's lineup for next season. Okay, I've seen a million reports. Oh, this is what Flick is gonna line up with. Oh, this is where Flick is gonna put Dani Olmo. This is where Flick is gonna put Nico. This is where Flick is gonna put Rafinha. I've seen YouTubers making videos about what. All of that is just speculation. That's it. Okay. When I said here several times before, I think Flick is gonna use Rafinha more as an attacking midfielder, that was just speculation. So yes, I'm including myself. I'm not above this. Anything that you see about what Flick is going to do with next season is pure speculation. Let's make that clear, okay? Do not take anyone's word about, oh, this is what Flick is going to do, because we don't know. There's one thing we do know about Flick, and it's that he's very secretive about his plans. He does not share it with the media. He doesn't let anyone else leak it to the media. He's very, very careful with his tactical plans. And nobody knows until the shit actually happens, right? All last season, we were just guessing. Oh, maybe Flick will do this. And then not until the day of the match that we actually found out what he did. So any reports, any YouTubers, any videos, any tweet, including me, that comes and tells you, hey, this is what Flick is going to do, they're straight up lying to your face. Because nobody knows what Flick is going to do. We can speculate, we can guess, but nobody knows what Flick is going to do. So that's the only thing I'm going to say about Flick's supposed lineups, which I've seen a million videos and reports about, oh, Flick is going to do this. You don't know that. Okay? You can guess, but you don't know that. All right, let's see. Richard says, is it true that Bilbao is willing to take payment in installments from Bayern, but of course not from us? When do you guess we'll sign Nico? I'm going to talk about that. So I'm glad you brought that up. That is in a Nico Williams section. I'm going to discuss the whole payment plans, and I'm going to discuss when is Barcelona planning to sign Nico Williams. But nonetheless, thank you for your donation. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for always supporting the channel. But I'm not going to answer you yet because I don't want to get ahead of myself. But again, thank you. Let's see. Shin, my man Shin says, man, I hope Mo hasn't passed out from the nasty heat they have up there now. Be safe, my friend. It is unbearable up here. Unbearable. Triple digits with very, very high humidity. And I'm honestly worried for people out there because I'm blessed. I'm in a place that has central air, which it might sound crazy. But actually, a lot of New York doesn't have central air because, most New York is old buildings. They all have like window units. Some people don't have AC at all. So unfortunately, whenever it does hit record heat waves here in New York, people die. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. People do die. So I hope everyone out there is safe. I'm okay here. I'm alive. I'm blessed. I have AC. But yes, I am worried about other people the elderly, especially the very young children. But it's very, very hot. It's so humid. I walked out today. I took my dog out, and I was in the shade. I wasn't even like in the sun, direct sunlight. I was in the shade walking, not running or exercising. And I came back and my whole shirt was just wet, stuck to my body. I had to take a shower. My dog couldn't even walk because the floor was so hot. So it's pretty bad. And the crazy thing, this is not even the hottest day. Tomorrow's going to be even worse. And tomorrow I got to go to court, which means I have to wear a suit. So tomorrow's going to be hell. So pray for me tomorrow. Yo-Yo says, Fabrizio confirmed Flick plan if Nico comes to try out Olmo as a false now while extracting minutes from Lewa throughout the season if Olmo works out. Look, I don't care if God himself opened the sky and said, this is what Flick is going to do. Nobody can confirm what Flick plan is. Nobody, because nobody knows what Flick is going to do. We learned that all last season. Flick is very, very cautious about his plans, about his tactical plans. He never leaks it. In fact, he has gone as far as setting up booby traps, I guess, if you want to call that, where he was giving different people different bits of news, fake news, like, hey, I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to tell you this, and see which out of those fake stories that he made up was actually leaked to the news to identify who was leaking stuff. And then when he did identify, obviously that person was, completely prohibited from being in the locker room, because Flick is very, very careful about his tactical plans. So I don't care if Fabrizio confirmed it. I don't care if Jean Laporta confirmed it. Nobody knows what Flick is going to do. But anyways, let's see. The Matrix says Barcelona been smart. Yes, they have been smart. And Play Highlight says, glad to catch a live watching from Ghana. It's 11:43 here. Well, thank you, my friend, for watching and for staying up late. And Mamadou Berry says, who's here with me for Barcelona update news? Here we go. Yes, here we go. And with that, let's move on to the next bit of news, because, ladies and gentlemen, I do have an update in regards to Frenkie de Jong, because, ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona are hoping to finalize the contract renewal of the Dutch midfielder, and you want to do it as soon as this week. Yes, you heard that correctly. As you know, Barcelona have been trying to renew Frenkie's contract, which expires next summer of 2026. They've been trying to renew it for the past, I think, a year and a half, which they haven't had luck. They were hitting a lot of walls, no responses, no callbacks, nothing. Barcelona even went as far as saying, all right, we're done. The offer has expired. We're not going to renew you unless you approach us. Then Deco said, just kidding, never mind. They offered him a new contract. Still no responses. Eventually, we found out that it wasn't Frenkie who was doing this. It was actually his agent. It was his agent, Ali Dursun, who was kind of stonewalling Barcelona for whatever reason. Maybe he wanted to take Frenkie somewhere else where they could offer him a transfer fee, because remember, transfer fees make agents a lot more money than contract renewals, right? Because there is no fee to renew a contract, but there is a fee to transfer a player to another club, and usually agents get a chunk of that fee, right? Maybe that was the reason. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate, but it turns out it was Ali Dursun, Frenkie's agent, who was stonewalling Barcelona and kind of putting stops or putting roadblocks in this contract renewal. I'm sure Frenkie had to do something with it too. I don't think Ali Dursun was acting on his own, just like, oh, fuck this. My player wants to renew. The club wants to renew. I'm bored. I'm just going to fuck with everybody and just not do anything. I'm sure Frenkie was behind it too, because let's not forget, Frenkie was very upset with the club for a while because Alemany tried to push him out. And Frenkie said, no, I'm staying. And then the relationship turned sour. And then kind of Deco came and he tried to fix it, but it also didn't work. And then finally Flick came and he was like, all right, look, you're important. I count on you. You're an important part for my project. So I think to a certain extent, Frenkie probably did have a part of it, but we're not going to know. Who knows? Maybe ever, or maybe we'll eventually find out. But all we know is that Frenkie de Jong has finally decided that he wants to fire Ali Dursun. He has talked to his lawyer and said, look, I need you to break the contract between me and Ali Dursun. And instead, Frenkie picked up the phone himself, told Barcelona, hey, I want to renew, and I'm even willing to reduce my salary. And of course, this news was welcomed in Barcelona, because as we know, Frenkie de Jong was very important to Flick during the second half of the season after he fully recovered from that ankle injury. Well, now Barcelona are working, to extend this contract of Frenkie de Jong past its expiration of 2026, because as you know, Barcelona have now a new rule that no player will play for the final year of his contract at Barcelona. If you are during the final year, you either renew or you get sold, which, by the way, I think it's a pretty stupid rule. Think about it this way. On paper, it might sound logical, right? It's your final year. You either renew or you get sold. But here's the thing. Not all players need to be renewed or sold. Some players, their contracts just need to expire, and that's it. Say goodbye. For example, let's look at Ansu Fati. Let's assume this is Ansu Fati's last year. Or he is a better one. Let's assume this is Ter Stegen's last year. And you tell Ter Stegen, okay, you either have to renew or you have to leave. And Ter Stegen says, I don't want to leave. What does that leave you with? It only leaves you with the option to renew him. So does that mean you're going to go and renew him when you just signed Joan Garcia? No, right? It's a pretty stupid fucking rule. Not everybody needs to be renewed. Not everybody needs to be sold. Some players, just let them live out their contract. And yes, I know it's better to sell someone because you can make money versus them leaving free agent. But here's the thing. What if they don't want to leave? You tell me you're going to renew them because that's your only two options, renew or sell. And if they don't want to leave, then, we just renew them even though you don't count on the player. That makes no sense to me. But anyways, I'm digressing. So since Barcelona have this new stupid rule, which was made up by Deco, to either you renew or you get sold, well, Barcelona have been working on the contract renewal of Frenkie de Jong. And while they are looking to finalize it before the end of this month. Now you might say, Mo, why the end of this month? Well, as I explained before, June 30th is the end of the fiscal year. And Barcelona want to finish this renewal before the end of the fiscal year. Because as you know, Frenkie de Jong has an incredibly high salary. The highest salary in all the Spanish league. And Barcelona want to give him a new salary, a lower salary under his new contract. And they want to do that during this fiscal year. That way, next fiscal year, they would have more space on their wage bill because Frankie's salary would be lower. So it would occupy less space on the wage bill. And this would help Barcelona achieve the one-to-one rule and would also help them, of course, register players like Joan Garcia and, of course, Nico Williams, who even though his signing is still pending, Barcelona are set to go through with it. Now, Deco, during his interview with La Vanguardia, which, by the way, I covered portions of it yesterday, he said the following about Frenkie de Jong, which, of course, confirms Barcelona's desire to renew the Dutch midfielder. But Deco said the Frenkie we had this season is the Frenkie we want. We want to continue with Frenkie. Again, we want to continue with Frenkie. He has one more year on his contract, and we're going to analyze things calmly. So Deco, of course, confirming that this is the Frenkie they want. They want to continue with him. And, of course, Barcelona looking to do that by extending his contract, and they want to do it before the end of this month, hopefully by the end of this week. All right, that is the news as far as Frenkie de Jong. Let's do the comment section, and then we are going to talk about Nico Williams because, ladies and gentlemen, that Athletic Club de Bilbao attacker has already packed his bags. How do you like that, Athletic Club? You cry babies. Hector says, what's good, Mo? Hope we help to get these deals wrapped up and sales complete to plan for next season. I'm excited to see Flick's team next season. I see an electric offense and a wall of defense. What do you say? 100%. I'm very excited for next season. I mean, with Nico Williams joining the attack, I think that's going to be... We already had a pretty electric attack. And remember, the highest scoring attack in all of the Spanish league and I think in all of Europe. And then you add Nico Williams to that equation. I mean, oh my God. As far as defense, I'm sure there's going to be improvements. I'm sure Barcelona's defense will get better. But again, as I've explained many, many times, don't expect Barcelona to stop conceding goals. That's just not Flick's philosophy. Flick's philosophy, very similar to Johan Cruyff's philosophy, which is about outscoring the opponent. It's not about, I'm going to keep a clean sheet. No, it's about, the opponent scores 4 goals. Okay, I'm going to score 5. So don't expect Barcelona to all of a sudden stop conceding goals. It just does not work. That's just a byproduct of what you do because Barcelona under Flick, highly offensive team. They attack with all 11 players. When I mean with 11 players, I mean even the goalkeeper because the goalkeeper starts the play. So when you're attacking with all your players, that means no one's left to defend. So you're naturally going to get caught with your pants down. You're naturally going to concede goals. But that's not a problem as long as you're outscoring your opponent. So remember that, because I've had to explain this a million times this season. Oh, Barcelona conceding goals. Well, yes, of course they're conceding goals. Look at Atletico Madrid. Their plan is to always defend. They park the bus. You know what happens if they don't score goals? Why? Because they're always parking the bus. When you're defending with all your players, there's no one attacking, so you're going to score very little. Does that mean Atletico Madrid have an attacking problem? No, that's just a byproduct of what they do. Same with Barcelona. We attack with all of our players, so the reason we concede is a byproduct of what we do. When you attack with all your players, of course you're going to concede goals. As long as you're outscoring your opponent, it doesn't matter. If they score 5, we score 6. If they score 10, we score 11. If we're doing that, we're doing a good job. Stop crying about conceded goals, please. Muhammad Balah says, hi, Mo. My name is Muhammad M. Balah. I'm watching you from Liberia, Monrovia. It's 11:43 p.m. and it's just 7 minutes from my birthday. All right, let's fucking go. Happy birthday, my friend. Let's all wish Muhammad Balah a happy birthday in the chat section. Oh, it's actually already midnight, and because this is several minutes ago, but it's already midnight. So happy birthday, my friend. Everybody wish him a happy birthday, but that's pretty cool. Thank you for sharing your birthday here in the chat section. And Yo-Yo says, hey, Mo, here in Sweden, it's already 24th of June, and it's Messi's birthday. And will you be watching Inter Miami today? Honestly, I have watched 0 Club World Cup games. I know it's bad, but since Barcelona's not in it, I'm honestly not interested in this tournament. Plus, it seems to be like a total mess. Nobody's even going to the stadiums. Maybe I'll watch Inter Miami, but the very few times I've watched them, it's pretty sad. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Messi and Busquets and all of them, but I mean, what can I say? I think I've had more fun watching high school teams play, but maybe I'll watch it. I don't know. Roger says, hey, Mo, question. Why is that Barca is having trouble to sign Nico when last year they had money to buy him and Olmo and they only bought Olmo? Well, here's the thing. Barcelona did not have money to buy both Nico and Olmo. Barcelona's plan was to sign Nico. Nico started having doubts about coming to Barcelona because he wanted registration guarantees, which Barcelona could not give him. So that's when Barcelona pivoted to Olmo and decided, okay, well, if Nico's not going to come, we're going to sign Olmo. So they used the money that they were going to use for Nico to sign Olmo. And that's for some reason, a lot of people have forgotten this, but that was the order of things. It was Nico, Nico, Nico. Oh, shit, Nico saying no. Okay, Olmo, Olmo, Olmo. So no, we didn't have money to sign both. But anyway, speaking of Nico Williams, let's get back to the news because we do have to talk about Nico Williams because, ladies and gentlemen, Nico Williams has packed his bags. So yes, this is happening. This is not the repeat of last summer where Nico Williams had initially said he wanted to come to Barcelona and eventually he didn't because, again, Barcelona could not guarantee his registration. But this time it's happening. Barcelona and Nico Williams have already reached an agreement. Well, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. First of all, Nico Williams reached out. He's the one who reached out to Barcelona this time, not the other way around. Barcelona had reached out to him last summer to let him know that they wanted to sign him. This summer, it was Nico who reached out to Barcelona through his agent saying, hey, I want to come to Barcelona. Chelsea, Arsenal, Bayern, they're all interested in me, but I don't care. I want Barca and Barca only. I'm even willing to accept whatever terms you throw my way. After that, Barcelona decided that, okay, Nico Williams was going to be the priority. Deco flew to Ibiza, met with Nico, reached an agreement with him where Nico's going to join Barcelona on a 6-year contract until 2031 with a 7 million euro net salary. 6 to 7, by the way. Athletic Club are offering him 10 million euros. So he's actually losing money by coming to Barcelona. But that's how committed Nico is coming to the club. And well, now there's no turning back. Again, it's the player who reached out to Barca. It's the player who has already reached an agreement with Barca. And now it's reported that Nico Williams has emptied his locker at Athletic Club Bilbao. He went to the club last week on Thursday. He packed all his stuff. He emptied it all out because this time it's final. Nico Williams is coming to Barcelona. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Now, I know that's you guys' question. When will Barcelona trigger the release clause? and I have the answer for you. Barcelona are not going to trigger the release clause until the new fiscal year. As I've explained twice already in this video, June 30th, that's the end of the fiscal year. All clubs will turn over their financial paperwork to La Liga, and then La Liga will issue new wage caps starting July 1st, which is the beginning of the next fiscal year, the 2025-2026 fiscal year. And Barcelona want to include that expense of triggering the release clause in next year's fiscal year because it makes more financial sense. Barcelona have sat down, they've crunched the numbers, and they figured out that it's better to include the release clause as part of Barcelona's expense for next year, next fiscal year, versus this one. So Barcelona are not going to trigger their clause until the new fiscal year, which again begins July 1st, which don't worry, it's right around the corner because it's already June 23rd or June 24th in Spain. So we're only 6 days away from the new fiscal year. Now, here is where it gets even more interesting because Nico Williams is set to inform Athletic Club Bilbao this week that he is leaving. Because remember, Athletic Club Bilbao are still hopeful that they can extend his contract. They're offering him a contract renewal. They're offering him to be the highest paid player at Athletic Club Bilbao. They're even offering him a higher salary than what he would get here at Barcelona. And this week, he's going to tell them, sorry, you're a mediocre club. F you, I'm going to Barca. Of course, he's not going to say that, but you get the point. Now, not only that, but Nico Williams is also set to request from Athletic Club de Bilbao to negotiate with Barcelona. And when I say negotiate, I don't mean a reduction of the fee. The release clause is what it is. It's 58 million euros plus inflationary cost, making it 62. So Nico Williams will ask Athletic Club de Bilbao to negotiate with Barcelona a payment plan of those 62 million euros. Now, so far, Athletic Club Bilbao are refusing to do so. But this is what we found out. We found out that last summer, Nico Williams' agent, Felix Tainta, when Nico decided to stay, he reached a verbal agreement with the club. And Felix Tainta told Athletic Club Bilbao, hey, we're going to stay one more season, but we're not going to agree to a higher release clause. It's going to stay the same. And next summer, if Nico decides to leave, you have to agree to a payment plan for his release clause. We're not going to ask you to accept less than the release clause. You could charge the release clause. That's your legal right. But you agree that you can negotiate an installment plan if Nico stays for one more season. And Atletico Bilbao said, okay, keep the player here for one more season. We'll agree to an installment plan, which we found out that Atletico Bilbao are willing to accept a payment plan from Bayern Munich. Remember, Bayern Munich are still in the race for the player. Chelsea and Arsenal already withdrew, but Bayern Munich are still hopeful to sign Nico Williams. In fact, the sporting director abandoned the Club World Cup and flew back to Germany to plan for next season, and part of that plan is Nico Williams. So Atletico Bilbao are willing to accept a payment plan from Bayern Munich, but they're saying no to Barcelona. So Nico is expected to tell Atletico Bilbao this week, hey, I'm leaving, and by the way, stop being assholes, negotiate an installment plan. Felix Tainta is also going to speak to them and say, hey, look, you promised me that you would agree to an installment plan if Nico stays for another season. We'll see if this moves the needle with Atletico Bilbao. I honestly highly doubt it. They're really butthurt that Nico's coming to Barca. So my guess is that Barcelona will end up paying the full release clause, not in installment plans. But hey, if they end up agreeing, great. If not, Barcelona are going to pay it either way. And again, it's not going to happen until the new fiscal year, which begins on July 1st. But either way, doesn't matter if it's installment plan, if it's full, Nico Williams is coming to Barcelona. He's already packed his bags, emptied his locker, and this week he will tell Athletic Club de Bilbao, I have 5 fingers and I only have one for you. Anyways, let's do the comment section, and then we're going to talk about Roony Bardghji, who will become Barcelona's 3rd signing. Yes, you heard that correctly. Roger says, hey, Mo, question. Why is it that Barca is... Oh, wait. That's the last comment I read. Sorry about that. Solitude says, Mo, that weather in New York is the average. Nice weather in Texas. Man, that heat here is cooking me, man. I hope you stay healthy and also drink plenty of water. Well, actually, I'm originally from Vegas, so I'm used to like 120 degrees. But the difference is it's in Vegas is dry heat. Also, Vegas is equipped to that kind of heat, right? AC everywhere, houses, cars, businesses. New York is not equipped for that kind of heat because a lot of these buildings are pre-war buildings. And when I say pre-war, I mean, yes, pre-World War. So they're very old. They don't have central air. So when the heat hits here, people suffer. People suffer. Raw says, Mo, say it with me, Nico, Yamal, Rafinha, Lewy. Wait, what would those initials be? Nirl. No. Lindr. No, that's terrible too. I don't know. I don't think you can come up with any like a shortcut, like the MSN. That's what I'm trying to do. Anyways, Kaido says it's summer and it's hotter in New York than it is here in LA. Wow, yeah, it's been insane, man. It's been insane. Java the Hut says, I've been seeing on the media how good Roony Bardghji was before his injury and that Barca are getting a steal. I've never seen him play. Hopefully he can be a star. If anybody can do it, it's Flick. So I'll talk about Bardghji in a little bit. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm thinking of doing a reaction video. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat section. And Lanry says, as we can assume that Frenkie has a part of it, we can also assume that Stegen did some of the things we've heard, seen about him in the media. I just feel, well, there is smoke, there is fire. Yeah, of course, of course. Here's the thing. Smear campaigns are not always based on lies. A lot of time they can be based on the truth, but with a twist. Now, what do I mean by that? For example, we know that Ter Stegen didn't go to Inter Milan. He didn't fly to Italy for that Champions League match. We know that. That's a fact, right? That's not a lie that Barcelona made up. We know that Ter Stegen did not fly to Milan for the Champions League semifinal against Inter Milan. Okay? So, how do you turn that fact that right now it's a neutral fact? We just know he didn't go. Okay? How do you turn that into something that negative? You release it, and then you say, oh, well, it was because he was mad that he wasn't going to start, right? It's still true. He didn't go, but now you throw a twist, or you let people assume that to reach that conclusion. But the reality is that he wasn't registered to play for the Champions League, right? And players who are not registered to play Champions League don't travel with the team. Injured players also don't travel with the team. Now people say, well, Kunde did. Of course, he did. But he traveled on his own dime. He paid out of his own pocket. But the club, any club, not just Barca, they don't fly their injured players and their non-registered players because that's money the club has to spend on flight, hotel, transportation, meals. That's thousands and thousands of euros on a player that you cannot use. So why would you spend that money, right? You know who else didn't fly? Marc Bernal, because he was injured. And again, injured players and players who are not registered don't fly with the team to away matches. So here's a fact. Ter Stegen did not fly, but you turn it into negative by hinting or suggesting that the reason he didn't fly was because, oh, he's mad or he's a bad player or he's a bad apple. When in reality, it was because he wasn't registered. See? So smear campaigns are not always about making up lies. A lot of times they're based on fact. They're based on reality, but you throw a twist on it or a negative connotation. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, shit. Messi, for example. Laporta ran on the campaign that Messi's going to stay. Messi's going to stay. He ends up leaving. Now, instead of assuming and say, hey, sorry, I know this is the campaign I ran on. I know I promised you he was going to stay. This is out of my hands. By the way, it was not Laporta's fault that Messi left. La Liga told him, you don't have money, so therefore you cannot register Messi. He cannot stay. So it wasn't Laporta's fault. But instead of Laporta coming out and say, look, I know I promised you this. I'm sorry I couldn't keep my promise because La Liga has tied my hand. Instead, they resorted to leaking his contract. Oh, look, Messi was earning 100 million euros a season. Again, fact, not a lie. Messi was earning 100 million euros a season, But how do you turn that into a negative? You just let the people think, oh, that's what bankrupted Barcelona. But in reality, Messi was actually making the club 300 million euros per season in TV rights, ticketing, merchandising, sponsorships, etc., etc., etc. So again, a fact, he was earning 100 mil. That's not a lie. That's not something Barca made up. That's a fact. But instead of telling the truth that, yeah, he was earning 100, but he was also generating 300, let them think, oh, maybe that's why it caused Barcelona to go bankrupt, because that is a lot of money. But it's a lot of money without any context. When you strip the context away, it changes the narrative. So again, it's not always about making up lies. A lot of times it's just stripping the context. And all of a sudden, just let people run wild with it. And as we've seen, people see something on Twitter, they just run with it. They don't question it. They don't research it. They don't doubt it. That's it. Because people are more likely to believe a negative thing than they are to believe a positive thing. You can try it yourself, right? You tell someone, hey, I achieved this. And they'll be like, no, you didn't. Show me proof. But if they heard that you did something bad, they're not going to ask, show me proof that you did something bad. They're going to believe it straight up. No questions asked. Because unfortunately, that's the nature of people. And it's no different when it comes to sports. It's unfortunate, but that's life. Armando says, Flick does not want to give out the starting lineup. You think he really is going to give other teams an advantage on how the team plays next season? Yes, I agree 100%. I mean, we can never guess his actual lineups, like literally a few days before the match. And people are already like trying to guess his lineup months ahead. Like, I'm like, come on, let's be real here. Oh, we have donation. I'm sorry, Nathan. It says, any updates on Ansu Fati's transfer? Yes, there is an update. It's happening. I'm going to talk about it in next video, so stay tuned to the channel. And with that, let's get back to the news because, ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona are closing in on the signing of Roony Bardghji. Roony Bardghji, the 19-year-old left-footed, right winger. He is originally Syrian. He's a Syrian family. He was born in Kuwait and then migrated at a young age to Sweden, where he got his start in football. Eventually, he made his move to FC Copenhagen, where he kind of made a big burst into the main stage of football, especially during that Champions League against Manchester United, where he was key in FC Copenhagen's comeback. He, in fact, scored the fourth goal for FC Copenhagen. It ended up being, I think, 4-3, if I'm not mistaken, against Man U. And this is when Bardghji, at only 17 years old, kind of announced himself to the world saying, hey, I'm here, and I'm here to, well, do some damage to opposing teams. Now, all of Europe became very interested in Bardghji, including teams like Real Madrid, Juventus, and Marseille were very, very, very close to signing the player, but then he tore his ACL in his right knee. He was out for an entire year, and as such, many of these teams that were interested in him kind of backed away, including Marseille, whose deal completely, they completely backed away from the deal. And now Roony Bardghji made a comeback. He played the last, I think, 2 months of last season with FC Copenhagen, where he was part of the championship winning team because FC Copenhagen won the Danish league. Well, now Barcelona are closing in on the signing of Roony Bardghji. His contract expires at the end of the season, December 31st, and they are set to sign him for around 2 to 3 million euros, which is not a lot of money because, again, he only has 6 months left on his contract. Also, a lot of clubs have backed away because they consider him like damaged goods, so that also has helped the price being brought down. But Barcelona do have a lot of medical reports that show that Roony Bardghji has actually fully recovered from his injury, that he's totally fine. And as such, they have decided to make this signing. Now, here's the thing. Whether he's damaged goods or not, 2 to 3 million is a great market opportunity. And this is how Deco and the club view this, as a great market opportunity. We have a young, promising player with lots of potential with only 2 to 3 million euros, which is the kind of bet, as I always say, that Barcelona should be making. Because when you sign a young, up-and-coming player like this for very little, if it works out, you just hit the lottery. You just sign the next Haaland, Mbappe, whatever, for nothing. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. You're only losing 2 to 3 million euros, which, of course, to you and me, that's a lot of money. But to a club as big as Barcelona, it's not. Versus, losing 140 million on someone like Dembele or Griezmann or Coutinho or all these flops that came to Barcelona. So Barcelona see this as a great market opportunity. They are closing in on a signing of Bardghji. Bardghji is willing to come to the club. And in fact, they're saying he has already rejected Tottenham Hotspur's offer. It's kind of like a payback for Lucas Bergvall. I don't know if you guys remember. Lucas Bergvall was very close to signing for Barcelona. And then last minute, Tottenham Hotspur swooped in and took him. Well, it looks like now the opposite has happened with Bardghji has rejected Tottenham's approach. And now he's willing to come to Barcelona. And by the way, this signing is going to be more probably like a Barca Athletic / first team dynamic where he'll play matches with Barca Athletic but train with the first team. And then as the season progresses, if he shows that he is, a first team material, he'll start getting called up to the first team. So that's kind of like the plan with Roony Bardghji. Again, 19 years old, right winger. He's been compared a lot to Arjen Robben. Hopefully, those comparisons will prove to be right. And hopefully, we'll see an emerging star in Barcelona pretty shortly. So this should be Barcelona's third signing of the summer after Joan Garcia, Nico Williams, and now Roony Bardghji. By the way, Fabrizio Romano confirming this today after we've been talking about him, a week and a half, 2 weeks? So this is what I mean. Anyways, let's do the comment section. That was the last news for this podcast. Let's do more comments. And of course, I will be doing another video later tonight with more news, including what's going on with Ansu Fati, since one of you asked. Solitude says, I feel you, Mo. It's like snowy weather in Texas. Y'all ain't used to the heat like we aren't used to the cold. Our roofs are not equipped to deal with the snow and collapse and stuff, man. Wish you well. So here's a funny story. I was in Washington, D.C. I lived there for a year, like back in 2016. I was in law school, and I went there. And I remember they had this huge storm. It dumped a lot of snow, and the whole city completely shut down. Subways were not working. There was no public transportation. The streets were completely covered in snow. You couldn't go anywhere. Supermarkets were closed. The day before, the shelves were empty of food because people went in on a buying spree. I mean, it was like Armageddon. And then I moved here to New York, and it was like, bro, we like literally walking in that snow to go to work. Like, why are people freaking out in DC because of snow? But yes, I know what you mean. Some cities are just, some cities are equipped for one thing and some cities are equipped for another thing. Mark says, Balde is injury prone, and added to that, I rarely completes football matches. With that evidence shown, I expect Barca to invest in a proper left back to back him up because they'll be playing a lot. I disagree that Balde is a injury prone. He did have a serious injury, but then he recovered from it pretty well. Getting injured does not make you injury prone, okay? Injury prone is someone that gets injured a lot, above average, right? Because there is an average of how many injuries there are per season, right? All players get injured. It's just impossible not to get injured. Even players like Ronaldo, who has an incredible level of fitness, and they get injured because our bodies are not meant to compete at that high level. So eventually you get injured. So being injured, just because you get injured doesn't make you injury prone. I see that term being thrown around a lot. Like, oh, look, he got a cut on his arm. That's it. Injury prone. Injury prone. I saw him wearing a Band-Aid. Injury prone. I don't think Balde is injury prone. And, well, the reason there is no plans to sign anyone is because we have 3 left backs right now for that position, right? We have Balde, we have Gerard Martin, and then Jofre Torrens, who will be doing the preseason with the team. Not to mention, Inigo Martinez can play there. Not to mention, Eric Garcia can play there. So we're talking about like 5 players for that one position. So, no, we don't need to reinforce that position. And no, there is no plan to enforce that position. Romain says, I hope Roony makes it to the first team. He'd be a great backup to Lamine. I hope so too, my friend. I hope so too. And Anandu says, bro, I think Jofre is better than Balde. So here's the thing. Flick really, really likes Jofre. He believes that he's the only player in the academy right now that can compete with Balde. And that says a lot. If Flick looks at Jofre, someone who's never played first division football, and says that guy can compete with Balde, who's been playing first division football for several seasons now, that means this guy is special. Is he more talented than Balde? Is he better than Balde? I don't know. Only time will tell. Because again, he hasn't played first division football. But if Flick is looking at this guy and say, I think he can compete with Balde, that means this guy is special, right? So I am very excited to see what's going to happen. The preseason, of course, will be important, but we'll see also whether he gets game time during that regular season. Alandu says we must sell Araujo instead of Christensen, but Deco opts for Christensen. Yeah. I do have an update about Christensen, by the way. It's going to be in the next video. So stay tuned to the channel. And let's see. Solitude says, oh, wait, I already read that. Space Hob says, Space Hobos says, so if Kunde managed to fly to Milan, why can't Ter Stegen? He's a captain of the team. Because he's not required to. And we cannot force someone to do something they're not obligated. Injured teams don't fly with the first team, period. Players who are unregistered don't fly with the first team, period. If they want to do it, great. If they don't, you can't be like, oh, you're a bad. It's kind of like, all right, your company, you get paid to go to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, right? Let's say your company decides to, we're going to have a picnic on Sunday. You're open to show up to it, and you don't show up to it. Oh, that's it. Space Hobos is a shitty employee. He didn't show up to Sunday's picnic. No, you're not required to. Same thing here. He's not required to fly with the team. Why should he put money out of his own pocket? If he does, great. Applaud him. Bravo. Good job. But if he doesn't, you can't punish an employee for doing things he's not required to. You can reward him and thank him for doing things he's not required to, but punish him and saying he's a bad employee because he doesn't do it. See what I mean? Let's see. Abdul says, Mo, can Dani Olmo be transferred this season? No, probably not. Dani Olmo is looking to stay. Plus, again, as I've explained many times before, there's a thing called amortization. And the only way we can not end up with losses is if Dani Olmo was sold for at least 48 million euros, which no one would be as dumb as Deco to pay that. Let's put it that way. Suleiman says a lot of people who doesn't understand how Barca plays thinks we don't need Nico, including ESPN 1. Yeah, I've stopped listening to what ESPN have to say. Billy Mack says, is Lamine Yamal getting number 10 this year? Yes. Short answer, yes. But anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your comments, your likes, your subscriptions, your generous donations. I will be posting another video later tonight, so stay tuned to the channel. I will see you in that video. And as always, Visca Barça.